This is Jimbo at Florida State. Pretty impressive run there. Obviously, winning percentage, excellent offense. Did win the national championship in 2013, beating Auburn behind Jameis Winston. That was the last year of the BCS. It ended the SEC's 7-year winning streak. They've had one since then. So, how is he going to do there, I think, is the question, guys. It will be a difficult transition because you can't just walk in a program, but I don't know. I don't think any program out there has better facilities or is better suited or has a more fervent fan base than what he has right now.
Texas A&M can be categorized and should be categorized as a sleeping giant. Mm-hmm. You said it, Paul. The facilities are incredible. The fan base packs Kyle Field. It's one of the best atmospheres in college football. If Jimbo Fisher can go in there and get a quarterback, and that's what he is. He's a quarterback whisperer. Mm-hmm. Coach up some of the guys that are already there. Maybe bring in someone on the trail a year or 2 years down the line. He said it best. A national championship is the expectation at Texas A&M, and I think he can accomplish that there.
Texas A&M has had one 20-win season. I'm sorry, a 10-win season in 20 years. Jimbo's had 6 in his career as a head coach. So, yeah. I mean, A&M had that problem getting over the hump of like 8 wins. Just get to 10 wins, and like keep pushing that, and then those national championships will come. But everybody's going to be year one. You're expecting 9, 10 wins. Right. And those are the expectations. You didn't hire a coach to take a downturn. This is, Paul, how similar is this to kind of the Mark Richt leaving Georgia, Kirby coming in?
I think it's very similar. And I think
great talents there.
I think some people are undervaluing him. I mean, the end was not pretty at FSU, but that doesn't matter. The end is not pretty almost anywhere, for that matter. But, I mean, this is a big-time coach. I don't need to sell people on that. Obviously, A&M understood that, and that's why they went out and hired him. And I think this is one of the great coaching hires of the offseason, and if you missed it earlier, this is our conversation with him. We welcome you back to the program here on a Thursday, and that's a shot not too long ago of Jimbo Fisher getting off the plane, being welcomed to the home of the 12th man. What an incredible celebration with the boots and all. Leaving a legacy behind at FSU, including that national championship in 2013 over Auburn. What an amazing run for Jimbo Fisher. And we welcome the new, it's going to take some getting used to, the new Texas A&M head coach. Coach, I'm sure by now you're probably getting used to it a little bit more, but thanks for being with us. Congratulations. I can only imagine what the last couple of weeks have been like.
You're right, Paul. It's been a whirlwind, but that's part of it, especially with the new signing day, which has really changed the dynamic of everything, especially with coaching changes. But it's been a great run so far. Really like it here, and like I say, looking forward to being here for a long time.
Let me ask you about the signing day first, because everyone has had a different opinion on it. I'm sure you have a pretty straightforward one based on how quickly you had to adapt. What was it like for you?
Well, it was. I mean, first of all, you had to identify the guys that you had recruited, and then get out and get that message across, but then also trying to get in on other guys that would make a difference in your program, and evaluations were key. And but it is kind of a whirlwind, especially when you take over like we did. But like I've always said, it's great to have an early signing period. I think it should be at the end of the summer and not now. I think it's very hard, but it is what it is.
Let me go back, and I know certainly you had to describe this when you landed in College Station, but for so long, very few people thought you would leave. You've had many offers, probably more than we even know about. Why now?
I think the overall package in which Texas A&M brings. I think one with the commitment from the chancellor to the president to the AD. Not that we didn't have it at Florida State, but very rarely do you have them all three in line and see the same way. We had great commitment at Florida State, but I think this is a very unique situation, and I was a big part of that when we did that at LSU. And I know as much as great a job as Nick did, one of the things that allowed Nick to be Nick at LSU was the administration with Chancellor Emmert at the time, who's now the president of the NCAA, and Scott Woodward, who was his right-hand guy, who's now the AD here. And I knew they had the same visions in which I had. And I think with unlimited, you have a great resource base here, not only financially and commitment-wise from the alumni in the school, but you have a great recruiting base. And when you put all those things together, it makes it for a very, I think, capable position to be in to be able to make Texas A&M a national contender.
And Coach, you mentioned Scott Woodward, and while some coaching searches were rather difficult to watch, you were probably too busy to pay attention. The one with you was as seamless and as effortless, at least from a distance, as any I have ever watched. Talk about your relationship with him and how he played the role, such a key role in you coming over there.
You know, we've kept in touch over the years since we left LSU. We were great friends. And again, I thought they were a huge part of our success at LSU and allowing us to do the things in which we needed to do. And then, you know, we kept in touch and had the same visions in a lot of ways of how to do things. And it was very interesting. I said, you know, he left the University of Washington, which he was doing a heck of a job at, to come down here. And I said, it must be in a special place. And he always told me about it. And then when he actually made the offer right at the end of the year, which kind of shocked me in a little bit, it really did, that they went, that's what was going to happen. And what they always do, you always hear, this could happen, but you don't always think it could happen. And it did. And then our relationship and his commitment, his vision, along with once I talked with the president and I talked with the chancellor, I understood what he was saying. And then I started researching Texas A&M. And then you have, as I said, the great resources here and the great commitment from the people. There's a certain way you do things and a cultural way of thinking here at Texas A&M that I think is very unique. They take tremendous pride in this university, not just the athletic program, but being an Aggie and being a good person, and it was very unique to me. And then you have the large recruiting base in Texas, and Scott here to direct that. To me, it was something that I thought was an opportunity in which I wanted to be a part of.
When he finally approached you, and speculation has been out there for quite a while, whether it's accurate or not, did it take you long to pull the trigger?
Well, I couldn't because I didn't get the offer till the last week. And then, it was that situation. And it was a very tough trip because I had a wonderful job at Florida State. It's a wonderful place. President Thrasher and Stan and those people there did a great job, and the commitment to your players and the connection with your players. But, sometimes in life you have to make choices, and this is a choice I felt like I had to make for the future of what I was wanting to do and how I do things. But it was very tough. But at the same time, it was also, when you put things together, it was something I thought I needed to do with my family.
I'm interested because, when you go out there, as we all have so many times, it is unique, and you described it so well a minute ago. But what did you know about A&M before you got there, before you took this job?
Well, I remember when RC was here, and I remember when Jackie Sherrill took the job when I was a young kid in high school, and then I remember RC and what he had done right here through that whole reign and how good they were on defense and great tradition, but what really knocked me off, and as they say it when you get here, people say, our alumni base is different, our people are different. Well, everyone kind of says that, and everyone has its uniqueness everywhere you go. But of all the things I've been here, that's what jumped out at me, the pride in which the people take in this university in all aspects, not just the athletic part of it. And there's definitely a commitment to athletically, but just the pride in which they had in it, and in the research and the availability of how over expansive that Texas A&M is, and how many facets of the world in which they touch. It's an amazing place.
It is. It's a good point, because they have locales throughout the world, as you now know, and so many others do as well. In terms of turning things around, this has been a good program. It just hasn't quite been able to get over the top. I realize that's for you to study as time goes on, but what is your blueprint?
Well, I think first of all, we have to do a great job of recruiting great players. We have, and then commitment to developing players. It's an all-encompassing program, but first of all, we have to make ourselves available to the head coaches here in Texas, in the state of Texas, which I think has a coaches association and a group of coaches that are dedicated almost like no other. There's great football everywhere, but these people do a great job of developing their players, and I think we have to reach out and all through the state and make sure we do flip up every rock, as they say, and look in every corner. There's great football players all over, and then be able to, if we have to go outside the state for things that we don't have, we have to be able to do that. But then more importantly, our player development. Understand what kind of team we want, have the vision in which we want it to be, the types of players, the way we want them to think, the way we want them to act, all those different things, and then we have to develop them. And player development today is key, because there's so many great players across this country, and in this league. No matter how good of players you get in the SEC, everybody else has players too. And in your vision for them, being able to coach them, put together a great coaching staff, but a development staff that develops them first as people, then as students, then as players. And I know people say, well, coaches all say that. That's not true. It is here, because I believe the person you are off the field, the same person you are on the field. The more you can enhance those qualities, and then your player development, I think, is the key to any successful team, of really going from good to great, because that's the hardest jump. You can win games, but when you're talking about winning championships, there's a lot of small things that everyone has to be as one across the board with, and have that oneness.
Some coaches, when they get to a new job, have to understand the league. You don't need to understand the SEC. You've coached in it at a couple of places. You've lived in it in Florida. You've been part of national championships at LSU. Great success at Auburn. But it is a very tough neighborhood, as you
Yes.
well know. I'm curious what you think. You're going to see a lot of familiar faces on the sidelines.
Oh, and I know the guys that can coach ball, but to me, that's one of the things that draws me here. I mean, I think the competitive nature. If you're not a competitor, you don't want to get in this league, that's for sure. And there's other great leagues. You heard me say before, I think the ACC is a tremendous league. But I also think the SEC, and the importance of football in this league and the importance, the commitment that all the schools have to football in this league, I think is great. And I think the competitive nature, if you're a competitor, you want to measure yourself and you want to be able to do that. Now, as saying that's one thing, but doing it's another, and it's a very tough task. But this league is very unique in how it plays, the physicality at which it plays with, the guys up front on the offense and defensive lines, I think is very, very unique. And you have to win those battles if you're going to be successful.
And you've obviously had great success as well in dealing with winning a national championship against Auburn. Within the state, it's a different state than it was a couple of years ago with new coaches around. And I know that you can't get hung up on anything other than recruiting players to your program, but there's always that conversation about the University of Texas. You dealt with it in Florida. Do you have any thoughts on renewing that relationship on the football field?
Well, right now I'm concentrating on playing Alabama, LSU, Mississippi State, Georgia, Florida, and all those guys. Texas is there, and it is a great university. But, to me, if you look at those things there, if there's something there that benefits Texas A&M, then that's what we do. If it doesn't, we have to focus on the things we need to focus on and take our program where it needs to go. And
you mentioned what you'll deal with within the SEC West. Certainly you saw Nick Saban early at the beginning of the season. What is it going to be like for you to be in that same division with someone who obviously has played a role in your career and stands atop the mountain right now among college football coaches? I think, at least you know what he thinks. At least you think you know what he thinks. No, but it's going to be a great challenge. Like I say, Nick's done a good job in college football maybe over the last 50 years. I mean, as anybody, or maybe ever. He's going to be regarded as one of the top college football coaches of all time, and that's what you have to go out and compete against every day. And the University of Alabama is going to be that way. They're going to make sure that he has all the resources and things he has, and I think that's what makes this league so unique and everything else. You have to measure yourself against those people, not only as coaches, but the schools themselves and the programs all commit themselves to being good in this sport. And that, again, that's the challenge of it, and it's going to be a full-time job, that's for sure, but one we're looking forward to. You've seen the importance of having a national championship ring in terms of recruiting, both at LSU and Florida State. How important is that, though? Because when you talk to players, there's so few coaches out there who have won a championship. How does that play into it? Well, I mean, when you say, Coach, we want to do this, we want to go to the mountaintop, and it's hard for someone to say if they haven't ever done it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, at least we have that credibility that, we do have a blueprint and we have a way in which we think will work, and it has proven that it can work. But now we need you to be a part of that. We want to help develop you and this whole process to going there. It is a big thing because it's just like any time in any job, when you're referencing players and things that go on, or whether you're going to be a coach or whether you're going to run a CEO of a company, you want to know, has he reached the mountaintop? Has he reached the part of it that everyone wants to get to? And we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that. So when you talk in those terms, you're not talking about what we can and we're capable of doing. It's what we have done, and that's a whole different conversation. And finally, Coach, expectations are a part of it, and I know coaches mostly do not like to deal with it because some of these things are outside of your control immediately. You're getting in late. You're trying to get recruits there. But fans are going to ask, Coach, when are we going to win a championship? What will you say to them as you get to meet them this spring and summer? As soon as we possibly can, and I promise you this, I'm not a patient guy, and my expectations are always going to be higher than yours. I know yours are high, mine are too. Now, I realistically have to look at things, but I think there's a lot of things here that are in place, and it's going to matter how much we can put things in perspective and get our kids to understand the commitment in which they have to have, the coaches they have to have, and the whole supporting cast to create the culture. Most importantly, we got to create that culture, but I understand, and I want to be somewhere there's expectations. I don't want to ever coach somewhere that doesn't have high expectations, because to me that means that it's not what we do is not important enough to them to be fully committed, and that's part of this business. We understand the pressures that go with it, and we're going to do it as quickly as we can. I promise you that. Your team will be in a bowl game next week. I'm curious how you plan to consume that.
Well, I'm going to be a part of it as far as watching. I'm letting this staff coach them. I'm not a part of this. I'm not trying to interact in any way. I just go out to the practices and watch and get to watch the kids work. And again, after the last couple of days, I've had great work days, and I will be that same thing. I'll be a observer at the game and doing those practices. And then once that staff is finished, and because it's too much for these kids to learn new systems, new things, and new ways, and it's not for me to input in this system and in this season for what's going on. We'll let them do that, and then once that's over with, we'll start putting our things in place.
Coach, many thanks. Merry Christmas. Thanks for coming on today.
Merry Christmas to you too, Paul. Take care, buddy.
Great to be on with Jimbo Fisher. And, listen, I've known him a long time. That was very honest, realistic conversation about what he faces. It won't be easy, of course, but he has that national championship ring, and he has the commitment from that university, and that is going to resonate on the recruiting trail and across college football, I think, very, very soon as he puts the Aggie program.